Because German Chancellor Scholz rejected Taurus deliveries to Ukraine, the British considered a ring swap with their Storm Shadow cruise missiles. But what can the two weapon systems do? In an interview with the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung, British Foreign Minister David Cameron brought up a ring exchange of cruise missiles between Germany, Great Britain and Ukraine. The idea behind it is the British will supply Ukraine with more copies of their own Storm Shadow cruise missiles and receive Taurus from Germany in return. Ukraine would receive additional guided missiles through German support, but Germany would not have to supply them directly itself. The federal government, especially the Social Democrat Chancellor Olaf Scholz, rejects this. Scholz justifies this with the concern that Germany could be drawn into the Ukraine war. The Chancellor's skepticism probably arises in part directly from the technical differences between German and British missiles. But what can Taurus and Storm Shadow actually achieve? How are they different? Well, first of all, we have to talk about what are cruise missiles. Storm Shadow and Taurus are so-called cruise missiles. These are characterized by the fact that they can change their flight path and altitude independently. This is made possible by their own navigation and control system. They can also gain and lose lift like airplanes using supporting structures. This distinguishes cruise missiles from ballistic missiles. The airflight curve is largely predetermined at the start, and it corresponds to a parabola similar to a thrown ball. And additionally, cruise missile engines fire throughout the flight, whereas ballistic missiles typically only fire shortly after launch. And thanks to their support and control system, cruise missiles can fly comparatively low, even under enemy radar, and are difficult to defend against. Such missiles enable Ukraine to hit targets far behind the front lines into Russian territory, such as weapon depots or military bases. Storm Shadow was developed by Great Britain and France and launched in 2003. In France, the missiles are known by the abbreviation SCALP. France and Great Britain have each already delivered cruise missiles to Ukraine. Taurus, on the other hand, was designed by Germany and Sweden and has been in use since 2004. The federal government has so far refused to give Ukraine the weapon system. But what do Storm Shadow and Taurus have in common? Well, in case of shape, areas of application and weight, the Taurus and Storm Shadow are similar in many aspects and are now both produced by the same company, the European defense company MBDA. With the exception of the Swedish company Saab, it has bought up the national manufacturers of the two weapon systems. Storm Shadow and Taurus are also both air-to-surface missiles. This means that they are launched from the air to hit targets on the ground or at sea, and many fighter jets, including the NATO Eurofighter fighter jet, can be equipped with both systems. Ukraine fires Storm Shadows from its Sukhoi Su-24s, and according to MBDA, Taurus are also compatible with the Soviet fighter aircraft, although it would take up to 6 months to coordinate the jets and the German weapon system. Storm Shadow missiles weigh 1,300 kilograms. The Taurus missiles are only slightly heavier at 1,400 kilograms. Both models are 5 meters 10 long and fly at a height of around 40 meters. They reach speeds of around 1,170 kilometers per hour, just below the speed of sound. But what is different? The most important difference is the range. While Taurus can hit targets up to 500 kilometers away, the Storm Shadow, according to the manufacturer, can reach around 250 kilometers. Other sources state up to 300 kilometers. This is also a reason why Scholz refuses to deliver Taurus to Ukraine. The weapon could, in his words, if used incorrectly, reach a specific target somewhere in Moscow. That's what Scholz said at the Citizens' Dialogue in Dresden at the end of February. It cannot be the case, Scholz recently said, that you deliver a weapon system that has a very long range and then don't think about how control over the weapon system can take place. In the case of Storm Shadow, Ukraine is said to have assured Great Britain that it would not be used against targets on Russian territory, so they could do the same for Germany. Apparently, there are also differences in the possibility of foreign support in targeting the missiles. According to Scholz, German soldiers would have to support the Ukrainian military on site in the use of Taurus. Germany could not do what the British and French are doing in terms of targeting and accompanying targeting, he says, which is not really true, as manufacturer said, because the manufacturer objects to Scholz's representation. Delivery of the cruise missile is also possible without the help of the Bundeswehr. For example, Taurus would also be delivered to South Korea. MBDA also estimates that Ukrainian soldiers could learn how to use Taurus within 3 to 4 months. Whether and to what extent the British and French militaries are supporting the Ukrainians in handling Storm Shadow and Scalp is not publicly known. What is known is that Great Britain is providing Ukraine with Secret Service support in finding targets, for example by evaluating satellite data. Britain recently said that only a small number of its soldiers were deployed in Ukraine for medical training. And if you want to see something else, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.